Look at this. Look at this. I saw this tweet sequence that over when I was in Japan. This was really funny. Oh, fuck. Oops. Hold on. Let's put myself back here. Okay. The Life and Letters of John Brown, Liberator of Kansas and Martyr of Virginia, scholar select by Franklin Benjamin Sanborn. This guy with a fucking Ukrainian flag in the bio goes, he was a psychopathic serial killer who happened to pick the right side. That's insane, dude. That's insane. 0 likes, 94 quote tweets, by the way. I've never seen a ratio like that. That thing is all sorts of fucked up. Like, yeah, he killed slavers, bro. Are you fucking insane? You can't have a Ukrainian flag in your bio, talk about Russian orcs all fucking day, and act like, you know, it's justifiable to kill every Russian person, and then turn around and be like, but the slavers in America, those guys could not have been fucking murdered like that. Like, are you insane? I've never seen 430,000 views on a tweet that got 0 likes. Oh, yeah, this is the second time he was saying this, by the way. I saw this as well. He also said, Lee was a great man who chose the wrong side. John Brown was a psychopath who picked the right side. Like, Robert E. Lee was a good man. John Brown was a psychopathic murderer. Bro, just say you're racist. I mean, you don't have to say you're racist. War is different than murdering a slaver. Not saying killing slavers is wrong necessarily, but John Brown was absolutely a murderer. Yeah, the fucking justifiable kind. And no, war is not different than murder. Shut the fuck up. Bro, if there's one type of people that is like, you're allowed to kill in this regard, especially because like, oftentimes, most historians refuse to offer like normative declarations when talking about any part of history, okay? Because that's not supposed to be how you talk about history, even though like obviously history is written by the victors and yada, yada, yada. But there are a couple exceptions to that, okay? Nazis and fucking slavers. Like, that's it. Also, another guy with 69 in his name. I love that. Pisces Boy 69 and Achilles 69 defending one another. The 69 Coalition.
John Brown's body lies a-mouldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a-mouldering in the grave.
John Brown didn't kill any humans, though? True. That's true. Who said slavers were humans?
His body lies a-mouldering in the grave, but his soul goes marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. But his soul goes marching on.
What John Brown did was basically what ended up happening in the United States of America, by the way, with the Civil War. And some historians will even include John Brown and his actions at Harper's Ferry as the starting spark that inevitably led to the Civil War. It was very obvious that the South was not going to give up the utilization of slave labor. It is seen as a catalyst. And John Brown himself understood this as he routinely looked for support from other parties. And at the end of his life, when he was slated to be executed in the aftermath of being captured at Harper's Ferry, he wrote and regularly talked about how my death should not be in vain, but instead should be a lesson for all. He understood the assignment. He knew what his job was. He knew that the only way for true freedom for black people in America was going to come through violence. And he was right. And the only reason why he's considered like a crazy bad guy or in any capacity is because, you know, he killed fucking slavers. He killed capital owners. He took matters into his own hands. He was a terrible leather guy, though. He was just not good at business. Let's be real. That is like the one thing he wasn't good at. He was good at fucking. He was good at following through on his genuine, genuinely held convictions. He was just fucking awful at leather work. Like, I mean, he just failed at business a lot. Like, he routinely took L's when it came to like being a capital owner and trying to do any kind of operations. He was not the best planner either. But that's it. I, John Brown, am now quite certain that the crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away, but with blood. Yeah, he suffered a lot. A lot of his kids died. I mean, that was kind of normal at the time. Yeah, he had like 21 fucking kids, and like I think more than half of them like either died before they reached adulthood, and then the rest of them literally died trying to free. Some of them died at Bloody Kansas, I think. And some of them died at Harper's Ferry. Like he just kept. They died freeing slaves. Like, So he also told them they didn't have to join him, but they still did. Yeah. You could make an argument that his resorting to murder turned people off from the abolition movement. Bro, you are in 2023. What are you talking about? How are you making the Protestant-ass argument like that they made back then? That's crazy. Bro, you know the Civil War happened, right? Like, you know what that is, right? Because that was like what John Brown did, but at like a much larger scale. This guy is literally like only state-sanctioned violence, sir. Anything else other than that, completely unacceptable. I have eaten debate hook, line, and sinker. What are you doing? It's like how if we murdered oil execs, future generations would look back on it as justified, but it's still murder, and we would be seen as extremists. Like, what are you talking about? You have to be the same Twitter guy, right? Like, this has to be the same Twitter guy. Like, you have the benefit of knowing what happened, and you are still making an argument. It doesn't make sense. Like, what do you think? What do you think happened after? What do you think the Civil War was about? I don't understand. The slaveholders were not going to give up their slaves without violence. Everyone knows this. Yeah. Also, the maintenance of slaves was ongoing and unimaginable amounts of violence. You know that, right? Like, that's what the other thing is that people don't often recognize, which is that the maintenance and continuation of slavery could only be conducted through unimaginable amounts of violence that was unfortunately normalized at the time and still desperately normalized through historical revisionists such as the Daughters of the Confederacy. Okay? That's why I'm always like, bro, but do you not see what they were doing? Like, that's crazy. And that violence was legalized. So you, at the very least, know that was fucked up now. I hope. Holy shit. It's 2023. You know? But you're still saying like, oh, but what he did was murder. It's like, oh, okay. I didn't realize like you needed a fucking letter from the government saying that it's okay. And then only then will this guy actually get on board with that. You know? Don't get me wrong. I fuck with John Brown and agree that what he stood for. I just don't think murder happening outside of a war situation is particularly effective. Yeah, I already understood your point, and but you're failing to recognize why I think your point is null and void and stupid. You are just basically telling me that violence is only appropriate if it's state sanctioned. Do you understand? That's not a particularly unique position that you're taking. It's a very common one, and that in and of itself is like the silly argument. Yes, they deserved it, and yes, we know that he was right, but he was absolutely crazy fuck who thought he was sent by God to murder people. No, he thought he was sent by God to emancipate, slaves, free them. That's what he thought he was going to do, and he was right. He was right. I bet that dude would justify murdering his kidnapper or the kidnapper of his family. Look, the reason why people had to take matters into their own hands and engage in like individual acts of violence is because when you have the state normalize this level of violence, like, and no one is doing anything about it, and you see hundreds of thousands of people suffering right in front of your fucking eyes, sometimes it's a little justifiable to, go outside of the boundaries of what is acceptable, what is deemed appropriate in civil society. Okay? It is in no way, shape, or form any different than like if you knew someone was fucking kidnapped and you thought the state wasn't going to help and you took matters into your own fucking hands. There's thousands of movies about how sick it is. If someone was talking about radical Jews freeing others from Holocaust internment camps, that chatter wouldn't have said shit. Exactly. Like before, chatter's like, before World War II, it was really fucked up if like someone went into concentration camps and executed the fucking Nazis there. You know what I mean? That's a great take. But that's because, your ancestors weren't potentially linked back to slavery in the same, your ancestors were not linked back to Nazi Germany the same way that some of your ancestors are linked back to slavery, or you like hold on to that for some fucking weird reason as though it's like actual heritage. Anyway, do not misunderstand me. I have made myself very clear that like if Reconstruction was conducted in more violent ways, where the Southern aristocracy was truly wiped out, okay, rather than babied and conceded to, because they made a lot of fucking demands, America would not be as fucked as it is currently. America never repaired the racial wounds that it had created, it had opened up. That's why you had segregation. By the way, yeah, it's called Bloody Kansas for a reason. Pro-slavery activists were literally invading and attacking, including murdering anti-slavery voters. That was the other part of it. Like, those motherfuckers came into Kansas. Like, I know that, people will say, oh, well, so did, like, the anti-slavery activists came into Kansas. They're like, but for the most part, those cocksuckers were from Missouri. What the fuck are you doing in Kansas, dog? They were like, nah, brother, we love slavery so much, I'm going to come in here and fucking kill them. I'm going to kill you. How dare you try to free slaves? Fuck you. It's like, bro, what are you doing? And it's always the same. It's always the same attitude that like these conservative reactionary psychopaths have, where it's not enough that they have their own fucking slaves in Missouri. It's like they got to ride for slavery elsewhere. You know what I mean? And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Historians have always said the North won the war, but the South won Reconstruction. Yes, because they're capital owners. And those in positions of power in the North were also capital owners. And capital owners have class solidarity. So the capital owners in the North, even though the Republican Party's original inception literally had the mantra of abolishing slavery in the South and abolishing wage slavery in the North, right? They very quickly shook those radical roots that I might even say it were teetering, bordering on what some might even call Marxist or socialist. Okay? But this is precisely what they did. They conceded to the demands of capital owners in the South. All right, a bit of a and turned a blind eye to the violence that they were engaging in regularly at the behest of the preordained, predetermined previous social constructs that revolved around white people in positions of power and black people being treated as second-class citizens. It was very beneficial at the time. Didn't Lincoln write letters to Marx? No, it's the other way around. Lincoln actually left them on red. Karl Marx wrote regularly about America, saw the revolutionary potential, and even wrote to Lincoln. This stuff is like pretty hard, to be fair. This stuff is like pretty hard to consider in a Marxian lens, I guess. Or there's not enough, like, I feel like, as far as I know, there aren't enough like Marxist historians that in general, and there isn't enough like information about whether or not like beloved American figures had any kind of like interest in Marxian analysis at the time. Now, the reason why I say that is because there are actual fucking dudes who are like, I'm a socialist, and American textbooks don't, mention that. It's very odd because, Karl Marx was a profoundly influential person in the development of global history. Historical materialism is the underpinning of a lot of ways of analyzing the world and how humans coexist. That's why it makes a lot of sense when you think about like historical materialism, when you describe all development centering around modes of production and our relations to the means of production. Like you can make that fit into every facet of existence for the most part, right? Now, this is precisely why I think it's like you have to deliberately eradicate any kind of Marxist influence or Marxist perspective when you're talking about anything. Okay? That's a deliberate thing that these guys do. It's a deliberate omission. And what I mean by that is, or at least what I am talking about, it has many examples. Einstein being one that immediately comes to mind. Martin Luther King being a democratic socialist. Albert Einstein being like an out and about socialist. These are very important historical figures, both in American history and global history, that were openly socialist, wrote about socialism. The First International wrote to Lincoln pleading he keep the Union and abolish slavery many times. Yes. Are you new here, Hasan? You really surprised schools run on capital and surplus labor don't teach Marxism? Are you new here? No, but sometimes I play the fool in an effort to make a better argument. That's just how I do it. You got an issue? Are you new here? It can be applied to social media, surveillance, capitalism, and ecology, like you mentioned with Kohei Saito the other day. Marx thought of things that wouldn't be relevant until now. Yeah, but he also kind of flubbed it a little bit with the welfare state's continuation of capitalism. Let's be real. Because, like, the inevitable implosion of capitalism as a consequence of the inherent contradictions might come in the future, but I think fascism as a mechanism of control has been so good. Or a lighter form of that mechanism of control being neoliberal capitalism with like some moderate welfare state provisions has kind of kept this thing going for a very long time. This is why Lenin's works are important to also understand, especially as it pertains to imperialism being a necessity for the continuation it necessitates. Imperialism is a necessity under capitalism. You have to consistently ensure that there is more, that there is a third world labor that you could extract additional profit from. Liberals are more afraid of socialism than fascism because it is easier to come back to liberalism from fascism than it is to return to liberalism from socialism. No, I think it's also because liberalism is associated with, the treats, and treats are very important, which is what I try to stress to people when I purchase fucking luxury goods and everyone yells at me and they're like, your commodity consumption is what makes you moral. It's like, or makes you immoral. And I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. No one thinks this way. Like, you and a bunch of other fucking dumbasses on Twitter think this way, but most people don't think this way, and you come across like a fucking goon when you reinforce this value, when you shackle, leftists for no fucking reason. Anyway, well, capitalism did collapse around when he thought in the 30s, but the global revolution didn't come and capital won. The frontier is what keeps capitalism alive, and the frontier is closed. That's why I said what I said. Fascism is a really, really solid mechanism of control that liberal capitalists will rely on in times of need. That's it. And they did that. And then they did that in Germany, at least. And then what happened at the end of the day? Data Revolution is super readable. Lenin writes like a podcaster. That's funny. This guy's going to meet. That's so funny. Wait, I love this. Hold on. This guy's going to miss the ticket segment if you don't get to it. Hasan, please get to the ticket segment. I have a meeting at 1. I'm going to miss the Tucker segment. All right, man. Let's get to the Tucker segment. Just kidding. I'm not going to get to the Tucker segment. I think this is like very good information to cover. Okay, Ticket Carlson. I know that feel. This is good shit. Come on, this is important. What I'm covering is definitely news related, definitely history related. It's like lightly sprinkling a little bit of theory, pointing to some a little bit of theory. We can wait till after my meeting. Okay. Anyway, sociology major here to say 100% on the Marx take. He has his place in some ways, but lacks in many ways. I don't think he lacks in many ways, but it's kind of funny that a sociology major would say that because like 90% of what you get taught in sociology unironically relies on, his analysis. It's extra funny that a sociology major would say he got a lot wrong. Like, bro, your field exists because of Karl Marx. He like basically invented what you're doing right now. Sociology major, you mean unemployed? That's funny. Okay, shut up. Are you against Maoist tribal movements in the third world nations like Indonesia and Nepal? Wait, what? Why would I be against that? No. What did he get wrong? Like I said, I think one of the few things that I think you can criticize, well, not criticize, but like one of the few things that in a sea of like getting things correct, one of the most important ones being the rate of profit and its tendency to fall. The one thing that I think could not have comprehended was like how easily liberal how easy capital owning bourgeois classes that have designed society would succumb to a new type of control, which was ultra authoritarian fascist mechanisms of control. And then, okay, that's why I said you need to read Lenin too, by the way, for people saying Lenin predicted it. Like that's what I mean. Like there are certain gaps. And also Lenin corrected Marx and rejected his idea of first world revolutions with his work on imperialism. I think that was what was I going to say? Oh, I think that fascism is a mechanism of control, and neoliberal capitalists or capital owners now utilizing like the welfare state to continue and basically nullify the contradictions that everyone experiences under capitalism, the class contradictions that would inevitably implode this global structure. Paired up with imperialism and a bunch of treats that you can get for yourself, and this like maintenance of the presence of stability in the first world and evisceration and destruction in the third world with natural resource extraction, and also a maintenance of like an underclass, like a permanent underclass that will benefit the labor aristocracy in the imperial core. You get to the situation where, yes, capitalism is failing. You see it, you experience it, but you have no way of like truly comprehending it because ultimately you're like, well, at least I have fucking McDonald's. At least things are good. Things are good here in America. Things are pretty good. And I also don't get to experience the Indonesian child factory conditions. You know, I don't see it. It's not here. It's like really far away. So I don't really have to think about it. I don't have to think about how like fucking cobalt is mined. You know what I mean? Ever. You're right, but that doesn't mean Marx was wrong. Just that capitalism expands to new heights. Yeah, that's why I'm saying like there were certain things that he could not have imagined, but the fundamentals are still true regardless. Because one thing that people don't understand is like people are always like, oh, Karl Marx, communist, whatever, blah blah blah. It's like, no, man, he was a fan of capitalism. His bestie was a capitalist. He was, I mean, not a capitalist, but like a capital owner, literally. Okay, and also on top of that, like, he wrote about just how capitalism is. You're the one who's ascribing a moral value to it because ultimately you literally look at that and you go, oh, this shit is fucked up. That's it. You know what I mean? The reason why you look at his work, Das Kapital, and you think, man, this guy sure fucking hates capitalism is because you inherently recognize how unjustifiable the system is designed, and that causes you to feel guilt, so then you want to shoot the messenger. Because everyone has told you that that is actually inappropriate, and that's fucked up, and you shouldn't think about it like that. Marx isn't a prophet, shaking my head. Y'all need to help on material analysis. Yes, I don't think he's a prophet in any way. It's just that his analysis was very good. Like, kind of the best. Dialectical materialism is solid. I think it's the best way to analyze both history and contemporary society. And for that very reason, it seems like you can always apply it to everything. It's a really good fundamental to have. It's really solid fundamentals. And that's why it comes across like he predicted the future or whatever the fuck. But like he didn't. He just looked at what was currently happening. He looked at the past. And if you don't actually operate on that understanding of the world, if you don't look at historical materialism, if you do not analyze the world through, your relations to the means of production, how these things work, and center human existence around that, okay, then you're going to end up looking for ways to demystify class politics, which is what liberalism does. And then when you engage in that sort of thing, that's how you get to like weird Nazballs and shit. You know what I mean? People who are like, well, nationalistic identity is very important, and there are some people who deserve more than others. And it's like, no, it's just you've lost the plot in that regard. That's why I always say, like, you know, the 4chan fucking weirdos that create new ways of like trying to say, create new ways of like trying to fucking shove possibly Nazi ideology into the conversation are silly and wrong. There's no reason to demystify class. Just like there's no reason to mystify the top of the hour ad break. It's pretty clear cut. At the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. Okay? If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe, which you can do for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime. MAGA Communist IP? Yeah, that's a joke. I don't give a fuck about dumb shit like that. There's like 8 people who think that that is real. All right, we're going to get to we're done with the theory. But here's a theory. If you get gifted a sub, if you're lucky, you could avoid seeing those ads at the top of the hour. Thank you, Offline Tits, for the 5 get the subs. Line for people who don't want to see the ads at the top of the hour. Here's the 3-minute ad break now.